Okay, we're a little behind. We're in Daf Chavav Amid Beis. Daf Chavav Amid Beis. We're exactly how many lines up? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12. 12 lines up. At the end of the line, Ahube Kinishta. So Ahube Kinishta, the Hudoi B'Raimai. There was a base Knesset that were Roman Jews. You know, they were a bunch of Jews that had been in Rome, and they had a base Knesset. They weren't in Rome, but made of Jews that had been in Rome. The Havi Psiach Lahu Adruna. It was open to a room. The Havi Machas Be Mace, that they go ahead and they would keep the mace in there. So it seems to be like it was like a funeral home, and it was a room that was open between the funeral home and the base Knesset. So for Kahanim, it will be a problem of the Tumah emanating from the room that they kept the mace in. The Kahanim wanted to daven, and they asked Rava for an Eitzah. They want to go daven there. Rava, they presented the following shaila to him, but they can go in. What can you do? So Rava told him the following: Doloi tivusa, pick up the bima, and oisvuhu, and there's a girsa oisvuhu abava, and put it on the door of the room. In other words, it would cover the doorway, and as a result, it would be chotzeitz. It would be a partition between the Tuma in one room and the base of Knesset. Now, why would it be a chatzitza? The havle kli eitz ha'asi lenachas. It's a kli eitz that's made not to be moved. The kli eitz ha'asi lenachas eina mekabel Tuma v'chaitzis nea Tuma. Regarding the halachas of Tuma, it has to be something that's metaltal, something you can carry, something that's a base kibel. There's so many halachas that we learn from its comparison to what to or and sackcloth. The pasuk, exact pasuk, is v'chol kli eitz oy beged oy or oy sack mas sack hametaltal. Just like a sackcloth is something you carry. Of kli eitz metaltal. So to the kli eitz has to be something in metaltal. Since you don't carry metaltal, this bima, it's usually made to stay in one spot. In that scenario, it should not be makabel tuma, and then extended one. Since it doesn't receive tuma, it can be a chatzitza, a partition for tuma. So Rava apparently has a very good eitzah to go ahead and use this bima to go ahead and make a partition by the door. Amulei, the Rabbanan informed the Rava. Sometimes they carry this bima when a sefer Torah is on it. And it will be something that's metaltal, full and empty. So in other words, it's not kli eitz asil nachas, it's a kli eitz asil metaltal. So Rabbi answered, that's the case. There's no way the kahanim can go in a daven because this cannot be used as a partition, and the tumah would emanate from the room, and they wouldn't be able to daven.
Wouldn't that be moridin? Wouldn't that be moridin that you bring it to be to not allow the tumah to come in? You're taking a teva and you're preventing tumah. Isn't that bringing it down? I mean, it doesn't. It's not.
I didn't sell it.
But you're using it for something lower. You know, the hair is
What am I using it for? I'm using it to go ahead and block the door. Why is that my reading? Why it's blocking the door? I'm allowing Khan to daven. I'm not doing it's not a bizayin. It's not a bizayin.
Okay,
so that's the
bizayin. I was thinking those terms.
Rabbi, you're creating a base Knesset with Kahanim. I could just as easily argue the other way.
Okay. All right.
Okay, there's a mute button, Harold. Mitbachas Svarim, a mantle of Svarim, Shebalu, that they became torn. Also, now, Mitbachas of Svarim, even a Sefer Torah. So you have the mantle of a Sefer Torah, something that was wrapped up a Sefer Torah. Again, don't picture the mantle that we have, the colorful mantle. Picture a plain white, something that's used as they wrapped it around the Sefer Torah to keep it covered. So now it's ripped and no longer you can use it for that purpose. You can go ahead and use it for tachrichim of the mace. V'zuhi genizasan, and that will be the geniza. Again, mitbachos are tashmishe kedusha. These are things that are tashmishe kedusha. We said tashmishe kedusha required geniza. They require to not be disregarded, but in fact to be buried. And this will be a burial. The shaila is whether it's the burial or you're upgrading the kedusha by using it for a mace or using it for some kedusha. Anyway, V'amarava, Sefer Torah Shebala, a Sefer Torah itself, Shebala, that became what? Born. Goinzin Oisai Eitzel Talmid Chacham. You go ahead and you know what you do? You bury it next to a Talmid Chacham. Right? V'afilim Shani Halachas, and even if it's a Talmid Chacham who learned halachos, you bury it next to him. I really feel awful. I have somewhere, I don't know where, I have somewhere, I know in school, I have it on my computer. I was zochah to be in Dvinsk, by the kever of the Meshech Chachma. The Meshech Chachma is buried over here. Over here is the Rogachover going, and smack in the middle, there's a post, Genizah L'Sefrei Torah. There's a Genizah L'Sefrei Torah illustrating this. It would be a great thing for the blog. You'd have a picture of the two Go'ini of Dvinsk with the Sefer Torah middle, illustrating what do you do with the Sefer Torah? Bury it next to a Talmud Chacham. I'm going to Be'ez Hashem. I'm going to get it in school. I'm going to put it on, and I'll put it on the phone, and I'll get it on the screen later on down the line. But it's something to see. Says the Gemara Vaita. Amarav Acha Bar Yaakov Ubekli Cheres. You should put the Torah in a Kli Cheres, that it shouldn't rot. Shenemar. Now, the Yirmiyahu is the Navi. Just the background over here. Yirmiyahu is the Navi in the time of the Churban Bayis, and he knew that the Churban Bayis is going to be 70 years, and they're going to come back. So Baruch ben Nuriah, he told him, go ahead, take a star, buy a piece of land, take the star of the land, put it in a Kli Cheres and bury it. So what do we see from there? That a Kli Cheres will maintain the form of that one parchment, won't go ahead and deteriorate in the ground. When the satem Kli Cheres, you'll take the star of the Mechira, the document of the Mechira, that it should go ahead and last a long time. So you'd say, so too, a Sifrei Torah that was buried, you should put in a Kli Cheres. Omer Rav Papi Mishmei de Rava. Right, we're going to have a machloikis between Rav Papi and Rav Papa regarding the following din. Be'kinista lebei rabbanan shari, lebei rabbanan be'kinista asa. Now, in the old days, there was a base knesses and a base medrash. A base knesses would be a place where you would daven, and a base medrash would be a place that you learn. I still remember, I think in Fairlawn, right, they had the shul they daven, the base knesses, and next door there was the base medrash where they would learn. There was bisman hazeh. Basically, we do both in the same locale. But there are places that they used to have two separate places. The Shiloh is which has more Kedusha. In a sugya of Maila B'Kodesh Ve'ein Ma'ridin, in a sugya where one ascends in Kedusha and doesn't go down, which has more Kedusha and which has less. So according to Rav Papi, the makam of the base Knesses is less Kedusha than the base Medrash. So you can sell a base Knesses to go to a base Medrash, but not vice versa. And Rav Papa is going to learn the opposite, that the Makam Tefillah, the base Knesses, has more Kedusha than the base Medrash, the Makam of Limud Torah. So this is what Rav Papi said in the name of Rava. Bei Knesset Mei Rabbanan Shari, from Bei Knesset to the one base Knesses to a shul is permitted. But to go from a base Knesses to a base Medrash to a base Knesses is asa. Rav Papa made the Rava. Rav Papa said the opposite. There was chalukei deis between Rav Papi and Rav Papa as to what Rava said. Masni Ibcha. He said that you can go from a base Knesses, a base Medrash to a base Knesses, but not vice versa. Rav Acha, Kavasi the Rav Papi mistabra. It's Kavasi the Rav Papa is mistabra. Then Rabbi Shua ben Levi says base Haknesses mutala soise base Medrash. A base Knesses you can make into a base Medrash. So what do you see? Shmamina. You have a raya from Yeshua ben Levi that you can make a base Knesses into what? Into a base Medrash, but not vice versa. The Dorish Bar Kapara, my dichsiv, that this is regarding the Churban Bayis. It was Radon, the Rosh Hatabachim, the head of all the butchers of Nebuchadnezzar, right? He acted the physically destruction of Yerushalayim. So it says by Yisref, and he was Radon burnt as Beis Hashem, there's Beis HaMelech, there's Kol Bate Yerushalayim, there's Kol Bayis Gadol, and all the Beis Gadol, Saraf Beish. Now going back over each specifically, Beis Hashem, said Beis HaMikdash. Beis Hashem is referring to the Beis HaMikdash. Beis HaMelech. What's the Beis HaMelech? Elu Paltrin Shel Melech. That's the palace of the king. There's Kol Bati Yerushalayim Kimashmon. He burnt down all the houses. That's called Bayis Gadol Saraf Beish. What's the Bayis Gadol? So here's your machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Chadam Makom Shemegadlin by Torah. A place where they were megadlin by Torah. So Bayis Gadol, guys, we need to define the word Gadol. What's considered Gadol? So one said the place of Torah is called Gadol. One says the place of Tefillah is called Gadol. It doesn't say who said what. It doesn't say who said what. Chad Amar and Chad Amar, right? So now, Chad Amar Makom Shemegadlin by Tefillah. Manda Amar Torah. Where do you find that Torah is associated with the word Gadol? And that is be called the Bayis Gadol. Dichsiv Hashem Chafetz L'man Tzidkoi Yagdil Torah v'Yadir. Torah Yagdil. Torah is called Gedula. So therefore, Bayis Gadol refers to Torah. It says regarding the godless of Elisha, Gehazi, his servant, is telling about Elisha. Sipruna Hagadulas Asher Asa Elisha. Speak about the great things that Elisha did. Elisha brought back the kid to life. Elisha, the Ovid, Barachmihu, the Ovid, he did it with tefillah. And it says what? Sipruna Hagedula is the lashon of Gedula. So either Gedula is separated with tefillah or base or Torah. So now, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shlakish, one said one said the other. Who said what? We can infer from the Pesach in another place of Yeshua ben Levi that it was Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said the Beis Medrash has more kedusha. That the Beis Medrash is Bayis Gadol. The Stein of Yeshua ben Levi, I can bring a proof to Yeshua ben Levi who the Amar Makom Shemegadlan b'Torah, that the place that Megadlan b'Torah is greater than the place that you daven. The Amar Yeshua ben Levi Beis HaKnesses Mutal Asos a Beis Medrash. You can make a Beis Knesses into a Beis Medrash. Of course, you're being Ma'ila b'Kodshim. You're going up. So therefore, it must be that what? You're going from Tefillah to Torah. Torah is greater. So Chad Omer v'Chad Omer, we can afford the Chad Omer that said Torah to Tefillah is Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. And we said that Allah is like Rav Papi. So Taisha says a huge chiddush over here, guys. We have in the Piskei Halachos, we have rules, right? For example, one rule that's very famous is Machlokes Rava v'Abaya. The halacha in Kol Torah Kul is like Rava chutz miyal kigam, right? Except those places that are symbolized by the Rosh Tevis Yal Kigam. Machlokes Rav and Shmuel, the halacha is like Rav be'Isur, and halacha is Shmuel b'Mamin, right? We have Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan b'Chaveirav, halacha Rabbi Yochanan b'Chol Makom. Except this place. Except this place. We're passing guys like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Shema Mina. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is greater than Rabbi Yochanan, which is a Peladic thing. Be aware, however, Rabbi Shua ben Levi is an Amoira, that's the only Amoira that's ever listed in a Mishnah. There's a Mishnah in Avos, I forgot where, that lists Rabbi Shua ben Levi. I think it's in Perek Vav, who lists Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Look at Masechta Avos, Perek Vav. Shua ben Levi is listed in the Mishnah, even though he's an Amoira. So maybe that would go ahead and mitigate somewhat the fact that we're going to go ahead and pass like him over Rabbi Yochanan. Very fascinating. It says the Mishnah said, right? If you sell a Torah, right, you shouldn't buy Svarim. You don't go down, guys. You don't go down. Torah Svarim is Torah Nevi'im, Nevi'im Ksuvim Chumashim. You don't go down to the Mantlach. You don't go down, and you go up. You don't go down. What about staying parallel? Meaning, if I have one Torah, can I sell it to buy another Torah? That's staying parallel, or no? That's the Gemara Shaila at hand. We're going to spend the rest of the Amin on that. That's Shaila again. You go up, you ascend in Kedusha. You don't descend in Kedusha. What about parallel in Kedusha? Would you go ahead and be able to go ahead and buy one, sell Sefer Torah and buy another one? Buying an old Sefer Torah, to go ahead and buy a new one. You want to upgrade the Sefer Torah. Since you're not being Mila, it's staying the same Asar. Since there's no higher level of Kedusha than this, in other words, when's the din of Ma'ila B'Kodesh Reading? That's if you have an other level of Kedusha. But when you've maxed out, right? You've maxed out the Kedusha level, maybe then that's it. Since you can't go above that, you will be able to stay the same or not. That's the Gemara Shaila. Tashma, Avol Machru Torah, he wants to make a diak from our Mishnah. Avol Machru Torah, La Yichu Sfarim. If you go ahead and sell a Torah, you should not buy Nevi'im Ksuvim. Svarim Nevi'im Ksuvim Hu Deloi, a Torah Shapidami. We're making another inference. Again, we've done this many times. In this Masechta, we've done it one at a time, where we make an inference from a Mishnah to be passed on a Shaila. I can't go down, mashma, the same level. You could. I can't go from Torah to Sfarim, but from Torah to Torah, I could stay. Says the Gemara, you have no raya, right? Masnisan the Ovid. The Mishnah is if you do it. In other words, if I do it, I can buy it. No, it's not supposed to, but if you do, you could. Ki kam by boilan lechatchila. My shaila is not b'di'evet if you do it. My shaila is, can you do it? Lechatchila, can I sell a Torah to buy? It's b'di'evet. If you sell the Torah, you can use the money to buy a new one. What happens lechatchila? Can I do it lechatchila and sell a old Torah to buy a new one? Toshma, goylin sefer Torah. You can wrap a sefer Torah with the chumshin with the matbeach of a chumash. Again, a chumash is in those days a separate scroll of Breishis, a separate scroll of Shmos. In other words, it's the whole Torah but in separate scrolls. So it's that sefer Torah is all together, and this is separate. So you had one you wrap around the chumash, around Breishis. You can go ahead and wrap around the Torah. Of course, why? You're Maila b'kodesh. Again, you're going up kedusha. The chumshim b'mitbachos neviim ksuvim. And if you have a wrapping of a sefer neviim, one of the neviim, Yeshaya, Yirmiyah, Cheskel, Shmuel, whatever it was, you could wrap it around a chumash, a breishis shmos. Avaloi neviim ksuvim mitbachos kamashim. You can't downgrade a chumash covering to put on a navi. Chumshim mitbachos sefer Torah. No can what? Can you downgrade the wrapping of a sefer Torah and put it around a chumash? Ketani miyas goylin sefer Torah b'mitbachas chumshin. Mitbachas chumshin in. Mitbachas sefer Torah loy. It says make a diak. You can goyl a sefer Torah with the wrappings of a chumash. The wrappings of a chumash, yes, but the wrappings of a Torah not. Meaning, if it's the same level, you can't. Meaning, I won't be able to take one Torah's wrapping and putting on another Torah. Ema sefer v'lei chumshim mitbachas sefer Torah not v'lei chumshim mitbachas sefer Torah. I can't wrap a chumash with a sefer Torah, a Torah b'Torah shapidami. I think I said I think I said it wrong the first time. Tani mias, one more time. Go and sefer Torah mitbachas chumshin. Mitbachas chumshin in. I could go ahead and wrap a sefer Torah with chumash, but a sefer Torah to another sefer Torah not. Aim sefer, no. The chumash to a mitbachas, no sefer Torah. I can't use a chumash to a sefer Torah, but a sefer Torah to a sefer Torah I could. So shapidami. So what do you see? You wanted to make a inference from a Mishnah that you could. Either way, you have conflicting inferences, and as we always say, again, second time in this Masechta, we've gone ahead and done this, where you made inferences from a Mishnah, they were conflicting. Okay, the guilty party will have to pay a knas. We'll decide how much that is. Okay, anyway, so in other words, you can't make a diak from the Mishnah either way. We're back to the barn. What exactly is the psak regarding selling an old sefer Torah to buy a new sefer Torah? Tashma coming here. Let's try go ahead and figure it out. Manichin sefer Torah gabe Torah. You can put a sefer Torah on top of a Torah. The Torah gabe chumshim, v'chumshim al gabe neviim, the ksuvim, avaloi neviim, ksuvim al gabe chumshim. You can't put a navi on top of a chumash, like chumshim al gabe Torah, right? So what do you see? But a Torah and a Torah you could. It says, hanachta kam, it's shani anachad, lo yavsha. What can you do? In other words, when it's unavoidable, it's unavoidable. The ilaitei mahachi, if you're going to say you can't put a sefer Torah on top of another sefer Torah, hechi machrich, the ilaitei mahachi, machrich hechi karchinon. Guys, think about a Torah. What are you doing? As you roll it up, you're putting one on top of the other as it rolls. If you tell me you can't put Torah on top of a Torah, how could you ever roll a Torah? You'd always have to keep it open. It would be ridiculous. So therefore, obviously, Hanocha has nothing to do with the sale. Where it's Efsha, of course, you can't. It's unavoidable. When it's unavoidable, so you put a Torah on top of a Torah. But maybe regarding selling a Yashan for a Chadash, that you cannot do. Maybe that you can so you can't bring me a raya what from there. Since it's not possible to avoid putting one daf on top of another daf, putting a sefer Torah, it's permitted. Tashma, Dama Rabbi Rav Chana, let's be patient. Shailom Rav Yochanan, Mishum B'Shim Gamliel. La yimcha adam sefer Torah yashan likach b'chadash. So l'chayra, you be paishet the shaila. You can't get more verbatim than that. You can't sell a sefer Torah, old one, to go ahead and buy a new one. Don't leave yet. Says no. Hasam mishum p'shiyusa. There, we're worried that what? That you may not go ahead and buy one. Ki karmina, what was ashayla kigoin dichsiv umonach lafruke? My, in other words, guys, the Sefer Torah is written. It's in the house. The truck's outside waiting to start the parade, right? It's all there. You just didn't pay for it. Why? Because you got to sell the old one to have money to buy the new one. So that's the shayla. When did Rabbi Shimon Gamliel say you can't go ahead and sell an old one for a new one, where the new one wasn't there, and we're worried if you sell it, you may have to go ahead and fritter away the money. But where it's right there, and you know for sure there's no negligence, you're going to go, the sale will be finalized, and you'll spend it what? On the new one, what's the din? And guess what? We're not paishet the shaila. We're not paishet the shaila. It remains in a baya. If we're going to try one more time, Tashma, the Amr of Yochanan Mishur of Meya, one more time. Ein moichin sefer Torah. You can't sell a sefer Torah. Elalilmay Torah for the purpose of learning Torah. Velisa Isha. Now, the purpose of learning Torah. So l'chayra, if I sell it for another one, Shmamina Torah b'Torah shapidami. Maybe learning Torah and reading from the Torah are the same. So mashmu can be paishet the shaila, just like I can sell a Torah to get married. Hu adin, I could sell a Torah to read from another Torah. Says no. Dilma shiny limud. If you're selling it to learn, that's one thing. If you're selling it to read, it's another thing. To learn is greater. Shaloimid maybe they maisa, because learning Torah brings you to physically going ahead and keeping the Torah. Ishanami, why could you sell it to get married? Because it says the Navi says, Leitohu bara, l'sheves yitzara. The world wasn't created to be tohu void. L'sheves yitzara. The world was created to be populated. Avol Torah b'Torah, but stam for one Torah to another, just for the purpose of kriya and not for the purpose of lilmoid. No. Okay. Torah Rabbanon, lo yimcha adam sefer Torah. Okay, so again, it remains a shaila that's lo yifshita, guys. Just one nekuda, one ha'ara. Why, when the Gemara went ahead and said, does it mean dafka these two mitzvahs or any other mitzvah? It's a big shaila in the Torah Even. But I just had a different question. Why did the Gemara bring in the ancillary pasuk? If I would tell you, why does it mean I have to get married? You don't tell me, because it says in the Torah, Peru Uravu Milu Esaretz. It's a mitzvah deraisa of Peru Uravu. The mitzvah of the Shevis Yitzhara means after you makayim the mitzvah of Peru Uravu, you had one male and one female, there's a mitzvah to populate the world and have more children. That's the mitzvah derabanan called Sheves. So why did Torah go ahead and why did the Gemara bring that in? Why did the Gemara bring in the reason the person has to get married to makayim the mitzvah Perivivya? And the answer is that even if you makayim the mitzvah Perivivya, big chiddush. Let's say you makayim the mitzvah, you have a boy and a girl, you'd still be able to say for Torah to marry for the purpose of populating the world even more. It's a bigger chiddush. In other words, even if you are makayim the mitzvah, you'd still have the heter of selling a Torah for the purpose of what? Of being makayim the mitzvah derabanan of sheves, of populating the world. It's a nice ha'ara. Tarabana. La yimcha adam sefer Torah afal pi she'ein tzarich loy. You don't need it anymore. You can't sell it. Yes, al kain Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Afilu ein loy ma yochal. Even if you don't have what to eat, right? And it's not speaking of pekuach nefesh. It means you'd have to go for tzedakah, guys. I sort of pshat. If you don't have what to eat, you're going to die. That's pekuach nefesh. Nothing stands in the way of pekuach nefesh. Here we're speaking about a person who, if he sells the Torah, he won't have to go collect tzedakah to eat. And if he doesn't sell the Torah, he's going to have to collect tzedakah. You can't sell the Torah. I'd be Torah, sell what? His daughter as an Omer Vriya. We pass the Shpatim in a few weeks. But if you do sell it, yes, someone sells the Sefer Torah, you're not going to find the siman and bracha in that money. You won't have any siman bracha from it. The Mishnah had said, not only does the object have kedusha, but the money, any extra money. So, for example, let's say you went ahead you sold Nevi'im and you got $1,000 for it. And you went and bought a Torah. You could either do that, right? You sold a Chumash for $1,000. You went and bought a Torah. The Torah was $800, right? And so you have $200 left over. That $200 would have Kedusha. The Chaimos was saying that $200 would have Kedusha. Amar Rava, Loishanu, that the $200 have Kedusha, Ela Shemachru v'hoisiru. You sold it, you sold the Chumash, whatever it was, and then you had leftover money. Aval Gavu, if you collected money for the purpose of buying a Sefer Torah, v'hoisiru, you collected $1,000. You collected $1,000, and the Torah only called you $800. That $200 does not have Kedusha. In the first scenario, Machroi, you had Kedusha of a Chumash, and you sold the Chumash, there was Kedusha in that money, and it remains there. On this case, you collected, there was no intrinsic Kedusha yet. You collected for the purpose of a Davar Kaddish, but it doesn't have Kedusha. The male of that money does not have Kedusha. Says Gemara, Esivei, Muta to do whatever you want with it. Esivei Abaya, B'medavar Mamurim. When do we say this? That Meser Seyim has Kedusha. Ishloi Hisnu, if you didn't make a Tanai. Aval Hisnu, if you made a Tanai, Afilu L'Duchsusya, we'll see that is soon, Muta. If you made a Tanai in the sale, then even if you have leftover money, you would even be able to use it for the Duchsusya. We'll see that as soon. Now, Hechidami, what exactly are we speaking about? Are we speaking about a sale or are we speaking about a collection? If it's speaking about a sale and you have leftover money, Ki Hisnu my have. Guys, I went ahead and can you do the following? I have $1,000. I have chumashim. I sell it for $1,000. I make it tonight that any money that I have is not kaddish. You can't do that. The money takes the kedusha of the chumash. You can't go ahead and make that tonight. So says Abaya, this statement of making it tonight cannot be referring to a scenario of a sale. Ella must be that what shegova v'esiru, that you collected the money and you have left over. And the reason the leftover money is muta and time with the hisnu. The reason it's left over is because you made it tonight. Hisnu loy. So you Rava said a statement. If you collected the money, then the leftover money has no kedusha. Says Abaya, you see it must be. It doesn't. It has kedusha. Why? Because the only way to avoid the kedusha was al yidei tanai, al yidei condition. I'm collecting the money on the condition that if I have any left over, then it doesn't have kedusha. So how can you Rava say it outright? It doesn't have kedusha. So this is provided that you think that tonight is going in the case of collection. So that's going no. It's going on the case of a sale. It's going on the case of a sale. You asked if you sold it, it already has kedusha because it's taking the place of the chumash that you sold, right? That it has kedusha. We had the other day. We went through it quickly. You have the 7 executives of the city and in the city, and you made a condition you can use the money even to buy beer. That was the top of the only base. So over here, so in other words, Rava's case is consistent. If I collected the money for the purpose of purchasing the Sefer Torah or something that's a higher level of kedusha, then as long as it was a collection, the leftover money you can use whatever you want. It has no kedusha. And even in a sale where you say I sold a kaddishtic object for a higher thing, and you ended up making a little savings, you have a little extra of money. When do we say that's kedusha? If there was no tanai. However, if there was tanai, what does that mean? I sold it in view of the 7 executives of the city, and they made a condition that that extra money has no tanai. Then that extra money would not have what? Would not have kedusha. Now we said that you can use the money even for the chsusya. The Gemara wants to know exactly what is that. Says Gemara. Said Abaya to the Rabbanon that the having Masada Mastis and Kamed Rav Sheshes, so was we Masada the and Rav Sheshes. Again, the Amoraim learned Torah Shebal Peh. The people who were reciters of these brises and Mishnayos were called Tana. They weren't Tanoim. They're reciting the sayings of Tanoim. I wish my Rebbe in Yeshiva, I had this question, no one ever explained it to me. How could you have a Tana speaking to an Amoira? It doesn't make any sense. They were two different, it's like us speaking to Galileo. We're living in 2 different time spans. How is it possible? And the answer is that this is a reciter of brises, not the one who wrote the brises. It's a reciter. So there was there was a Rabbanah that we Masada the Masnisan and Bryce in front of Rav Sheshes. Me and Mishmil Rav Sheshes, my Duchsusya. Rav Sheshes was an expert. He was a Sagina. He was blind, and he was an expert. He was an expert in Torah Shebech Sad Balpeh. And he said, "Did you ever hear the meaning of the word Duchsusya?" So I'm like, Hachi Amar Rav Sheshes. This is what Rav Sheshes said. It said Parsha de Masa. Look at Rashi, guys. Parsha de Masa says Rashi. Who was that? Bnei Ha'ir, Soichin Adam Roichev Sus. They would go ahead and they would hire a person, a rider of a horse. Sheyelen Mezumin, he would be prepared. L'sholchai b'shlichus l'moishel Ha'ir. He would bring a shlichus to the rulers of the cities. Kishitzrichu. They had their very own Paul Revere. Right? They had Paul Revere. You know, they had a guy. So if you go ahead and sell a Sefer Torah, if you sell something on a condition, and the condition was with the 7 executives of the city, right? Then it'll be mutter to use it to go ahead and hire the Uber driver, you know, the Pony Express. Rabbi, Hilkach, Hayt Sumra Rabbanan, this young Talmidei Chachamim, we said in Daf Daled and Tainis about that Sumra Rabbanan, young Talmidei Chachamim, the Shama Le Milsav Layode Pirushay, you heard something, you don't know exactly what it means. The Shali Kamei, the Shchicha Kamei Rabbanan, Go around Talmidei Chachamim. It's not possible. They didn't hear explanation from a great person. Like in this case, they heard it from Rav Sheshes, what the Chsusya was. Okay, Bnei Ha'ir, maybe says 10 people. You have a Chabura, guys, 10 people. They go to another shul, and they end up, guess what? They end up, and there's an appeal in shul. And the appeal is they said each guy in the shul's got to give $100. So Pascha Aleim Tzedakah, they said you have to give $100. So nice to them, they give the $100. And when they're going to go leave, Mevinoi son imahem. When Farnasim b'nei ani Iran, they would get the $100 back, and then they would go back to their own city, and they would take care of the aniyim in their city. It was a big rule in Hilchos Tzedakah. Aniyei irecha, the aniyim of your city, the aniyim be'ir acheres, ani irecha koidim. So here you just ended up going to a city. You ended up having to give tzedakah. Now, really, you shouldn't have to give the tzedakah at all. But what's going to happen, says Rashi, the people are going to be choshen. Look, they put tzedakah on every guy. These guys don't give it. So you give it for purposes of lack of marasayan, right? You give it. And then when you leave, the guys will give it back to you. And then you get home, you'll use it for tzedakah, giving it to Raniyim in your city. Tanya Nami Hachi, that this dinner of Rabbi Yochanan, the name of Remeah, Bnei Ha'ir Shahachol Ir Acheres, Upaska Aleim Tzedakah, nice to them you give it, Ukshein Bayin, Mevinoi Sani Mahem, they would go in and bring it home. Right. V'yachid Shahachol Ir Acheres, but an individual, not Bnei Ha'ir, but an individual who goes to another city, Upaska Aleim Tzedakah, and they went ahead and said, you have to give Tzedakah, Tinasan Lani Oise Ir, and it stays there. In other words, the Yachid, you're stuck. You'd have to give the people of that city. Rav Huna was gozer tainis, and we saw in Masechta Tainis that they were gozer tainis and they would give tzedakah and they would daven. And now he was gozer tainis and they collected tzedakah. And so now you had a Bnei Ha'ir, you have Rav Chana bar Chiloi and some people from the city. So you have a Bnei Ha'ir. So the halacha should be they should give it, recollect it, and go back home. Right? Rami Elayat Tzedakah, they placed the Tzedakah because it was a tinus on Rav Chana bar Chaniloi in the Skevra, B'yov, and they gave it. Kiboy Lemesi, when they wanted to go back home, Omulei, they told Rav Huna, Noisvul and Mar, V'nezel and the finest ba, Ani mustn't give it back to us and let us go back home to go ahead and sustain the Aniyim in our city. So Amalahu, so Rav Huna told him, Tanina, there's always a rest of the story. Not so fast. Not so fast. It's like you didn't read the fine print at the bottom, You give money to something and then the subscription comes for the year, over the year, but you didn't read the fine print. Here's the fine print. When do you say you're getting your money back? When you gave it to the people of the city and you're a bunch of chevra, b'she'en sham amadeis chava'ir, that the Gabi Tzedakah wasn't a Talmud Chacham that's being oisef b'tzarchei tzibah. Aval yesh b'chava'ir tinasin l'chava'ir, okay? and you give it to the Chava'ir, and that's it. If there's the Chava'ir, he's the Gabbai Tzedakah, and that's what Rav Huna told them. The Kol Shekain, and Rav Huna told them, Kol Shekain in this scenario, the Aniyeh Didi v'didchu alai samichi. Not only am I the Gabbai Tzedakah for my city, I'm the Gabbai Tzedakah for your city. So Kol Shekain, in addition to the halacha that a Chava'ir gets the money and you don't get it back, in this case, you don't have to get it back because I'm going to take care of the aniyim of your city as well. I'm going to take care of the aniyim of your city. Says the Mishnah. Now, we know, let's say, base knesses of a rabbin. Let's say there's a minyan that davens there. As a result of a minyan, they could say, as we learned earlier, you can go ahead, you need 10 people for, so you'll be able to say Kaddish, you'll be able to lane in the shul, and you shouldn't sell it to an individual for his private synagogue, where he can go meditate, where he can go learn, You can't. Why? Because now you're going down. This would be l'chayra yorid from a kedusha to a lower level. If they should read them, I say because you're being married from the kedusha, because you won't be able to go ahead and say kaddish, you won't be able to lane. These are the words of Remeah. Some people say Rabbi Yehuda. Amruloi, Chacham told Rabbi Yehuda, Remeah and Cain, Aflei me'ir gedoyle le'er katana. You should not be able to, an ir gedoyle le'er katana, you shouldn't be able to go ahead and sell because it's going to be, and you could. Base knesset in a large city to a small city, you should not be able to sell, and you could. Says the Shapik Kamalei Rabbanan Remeah. L'chayra, Rabbanan made a very good sushtel to Remeah. If you're telling me you can't go from a yachid to a rabbin to an individual, you should be able to go from a larger community to a smaller community. For Remeah, me'ir gedoyle katana me'kara kedishi hashnami kedishi. Me'rabbin liyachid lecha kedusha. I'll tell you. Remeah says, I got to push the chiluk. If you go from a large city to a small city, as long as you have 10 people, so it's the kedusha is the same. You could lane, you could daven, you could say kaddish. So all the halachas of 10 still apply. So therefore, says Remeah, I understand why you could sell from a larger community to another, because you have a minyan. Mashen came when you're going from a minyan to an individual, you're being mevatel the kedusha of saying kaddish, you're mevatel the kedusha of laning. So therefore, so now the Gemara goes ahead and like tennis match, switches the other way. For Rabbanon, ki haygavna nami right? Rabbanon and Rabbanon stop. Rabbanon l'chayr, what do you do with the Tainer of Meah? So Rabbanon ki haygavna. If you're going to go ahead and be chayish for what? For going from 10 to 1, nechesh nami yishum roiv am hadros melech. There's halacha of in a multitude of people, it brings more glory to people. We always want to do mitzvahs with a lot of people. For example, Megillah, you should lay in a larger shul with a bunch of people if you'll be yaitza more, if you have more kavanah. There's a minyan of davening with a minyan with a lot of people than a few people, right? So therefore, if that's the case, if you're worried so much about, if you're concerned that 10 to 1, right, you're worried about kedusha, so therefore, roivat hamish melech also, that's the answer in the Mishnah. When he told him in the words of the Mishnah, in Cain, aflem ir gedoyle katana, why? Because ir gedoyle you have roiv am hadros melech, and to ir katana you don't. The Gemara is just qualifying those words of the Mishnah from ir gedoyle, which has a roiv am, versus ir katana, which does not. Says the Mishnah, a morchem beis haknesses ela al tanai shem yirtzu yachziru. Divrei Remeah. Remeah says any beis knesses that you could sell. In other words, in a scenario where you're able to sell a beis knesses, it always has a condition on manas that you can go ahead and get it back. On manas you can get it back. Divrei Remeah. Now, when you sell it, it's done. There's no backsies. No backsies. That's it. You can't sell the beis knesses for 4 things. Lemerchatz, you can't use it as a bathhouse. Uleborski, you can't use it as a tannery. The tefillah, you can't use it as a mikvah. Ulebeis hamayim, you can't use it as a place to wash clothing. You can't use it as a laundromat. You could sell l'shem chotzer, but Lekeach mashiyirtze yaseh, and Lekeach can do whatever he wants. So Rabbi had said the following, guys. Rabbi had said you can sell a shul, but it's on the condition that if you want the sale to be over, the sale is over. Okay, one of the highlights of learning Daf Yomi is you get to learn a parak called Ezehu Neshech. Ezehu Neshech is the 5th parak in Masechta Bava Metzia. It's something along the lines of Yavamis in terms of looking forward to. It's not an easy parak. And smack in the middle of Megillah, we're going to have a sugya of ribbis, And to my chagrin, Rashi did not say a word. I don't know why. Rashi did not explain it. But Baruch Hashem, I remember a little bit from Ezer Neshech. So here's the story. Classic ribbis, of course, is I give you $5, right, for the use of X amount of time, and then, right, you'll pay me back $10. Okay, so I made on my money. That's ribbis. We know that that's called ribbis ktsutza. It's set ribbis, and that's also for any Jew to do to another Jew. To another guy, it's permitted, but to a Jew, it's not permitted. So let's say the following. There's a loan, and to ensure the loan, I say the following. Here's a collateral. Here's a field. If I pay you back in X amount of time, the field remains by me. If I don't pay you back in X amount of time, the field is yours. Good. So let's say the loan is for 6 months. During that 6 month period, the field is producing fruit. Who gets that fruit? Now, if the lender gets the fruit, if the one who borrowed the money uses it, then it's not a problem. But if the lender, you got a potential ribbis problem. If he forecloses on the loan, if he doesn't go ahead and pay it back, not a problem at all. The field was his, and the fruit he used was his fruit. But if he pays back the loan, so what's happening? He's getting back the loan, and in addition to the loan, he's getting ribbis. What's the ribbis? The fruit that he ate for 6 months. So he's getting back his money plus the fruit. Good. So question, can the lender go ahead and use the fruit in those times? The Gemara is going to say the moicher and the lekeach. The moicher in case is the lover, the one who borrowed the money, and the lekeach is the malva, the one who lent him the money. Says the Tanakama, the lekeach, the malva cannot go ahead on the tzad that if he goes ahead and ends up not paying back the loan, he's going to have ribbis. Says Rabbi Yehuda, he could. The mocher, the one who's the lokeach, the malva could use it. Why? Because sad echad b'ribbis is muta. What does sad echad b'ribbis mean? I have two scenarios. Ribbis is only when there's one scenario. I lent you $10. I lent you $5. You're going to pay me back 10. No ifs, ands, or buts. Over here, the ribbis is not given. It might be ribbis, it might not be ribbis. If it's going to be ribbis, okay, but maybe it won't be ribbis. Maybe you'll foreclose on the loan, and maybe what? I'll get the field. Sadech of ribbis, meaning only one side of ribbis, says Rabbi Yehuda's Mutta. What's the shaila? Our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says Rabbi the following. If you sell a house, if you sell a shul, right? If you sell a shul, you can go ahead and take it back. This guy goes ahead, he buys a shul, it's in his possession for 5 years, 10 years, comes along the guys and says, guess what? We want it back. We'll give you exactly the amount of money that you gave us for it. And they do. Nimsa retroactively, what was that money? It wasn't a mechira, it was a loan. You had the usage, of the field, of the shul for 10 years. So that's ribbis. You used it for 10 years, and now you're getting your money back. So when Reb Meir says that you can go ahead and do it, it must be he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that sad echad b'ribbis is mutter. Because if not, you won't be able to ever go ahead and sell a shul on the Tanai that maybe you're going to go ahead and take it back. The same way you can't you won't be able to use the fruit in the field. Over here, you won't be able to use the shul al smach that maybe the deal will be void, and then the money will be a loan, and then the whole usage will be ribbis. So it must be that Reb Meir holds like Rabbi Yehuda, which would be very geschmack if you say that the Tana of the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Guys, if you look, Rabbi Yehuda, there's a Gersa Rabbi Yehuda, which would be geschmack. That Rabbi Yehuda l'shita, that's Rabbi Yehuda shita. Okay, so now I just gave you a very difficult Gemara in a very few concise time. So hopefully it was understandable. Let's see the Gemara inside. Reb Meir, hechi dairiba. Like Reb Meir, how in the world, since you could void the deal, how is you able to go ahead and live in the shul? A havile ribis, you have potential ribis, right? And there's no Rashi here, But the pshat is that what? That nimsa limafreya, when you get the money back, it was a loan, and you had the usage all the time. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Meir b'shitas Rabbi Yehuda Amra. Rabbi Meir goes in the shita Rabbi Yehuda Amar, sad echa beribis muta. Sad echa beribis is muta. Meaning, if it's not sad echa means there's only one possibility, but not necessarily. If it's only one possibility, not necessarily there's a way out, then we would say it's muta. Tanya, here's the tzad echa beribis, guys. I will show you notion, but if your friend owes you $100, and you give him a field and you say, "This much Paris muta." The moicha, the one who owned it all along, in this case the leiva, can eat the fruit. Like keach eichel Paris asa. Like keach Paris is asa. Why? Because if you go ahead and he pays you back, nimsa that the field was in your possession, you got the loan back, plus you got the Paris. If you never know, I feel like keach eichel Paris muta. Even the lekech, meaning the malva, can go ahead and eat the Paris, it's muta. Rabbi Yehuda, the ma'aser basis ben zoynish shasas de mecher al pi Rav Elazar ben Azariah lekech eichel Paris hayu. And so you see that that side echaberis is muta. Amaloi, they told him Yehuda, no, Yishamraya moichel eichel Paris hayu lo lekech. It's not like you heard that it was the moicha, that it was the malva, but it was the loy that ate the Paris. You have no raya. My binayu, what's the machloikas between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim? Side echaberis ikabinayu masa, but side echaberis muta. Rabbi Yehuda says side echaberis is muta, and therefore even like keach the malva can eat the Paris. Masa, but side echaberis is asa, and only the loiva can eat the Paris. The moicha can eat the Paris. Okay, that's one way. So one pshat in the Mishnah is to say that Reb Meir is going the sheet of Reb Yehuda. Rava Amad Kuliyalmat Tzeidecha B'Ribis Asa. Tzeidecha B'Ribis is Asa. So 1 second. Then how could Reb Meir hold that you could sell it? If it's Asa, the whole time you're living there, if they default on the sale and they take it back, it's a Ribis, and Tzeidecha B'Ribis is Asa. Right? Says the Gemara, Ribis al Manas Lahachse Ikibinayo. Ribis on the purpose to give it back. Meaning, of course, if you live there for 10 years and they go back on the deal, you're going to have to pay the rental for 10 years. There was never a havamina that you can get the usage and not pay back. Meaning, not only did you sell it, but then you'd have to pay the rent, whatever the rent is for that, you'd have to pay that back. So therefore, that's ribis, because it was a loan, because they defaulted on the sale. Almanas lahachse, to give it back, is that permitted or not? So obviously Rabbi Meir says it's permitted, and the Chacham say it's not permitted. So therefore we'd have pshat in the Mishnah. The Chacham says he said no, they disagree with Rabbi Meir. They said the sale is forever. And the Gemara says the following. Amar Yehuda, very interesting Gemara. Amar Shmuel, you're able to go ahead and urinate. Let's say you daven in place X. If you go 4 amas away from place X, you can urinate. Rav Yosef, my kamashmalan, what's this chiddush? Tanina, it's a Mishnah. The Mishnah, you could sell it for a chatzir. You could sell the base knesset for a chatzir. Lekech mashir tziyasin. Lekech can do whatever he wants, even urinate. And the Rabbanan said is only that the sale is that's kaveh the kedusha. Aval dalet amis like kaveh kedushasa. Dalet amis that it's not kaveh the kedusha lie. And therefore, what's the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda named Shmuel? It says Tani time going Rav Nachman. Okay. Tani time going Rav Nachman. I'm a spal marchik dalet amis umashtin. If you daven in place X, distance yourself for amis umashtin. V'hamashtin, and if you urinate marchik dalet amis umispalo, then you distance yourself 4 amis away from the urine and daven. Amalei bishleima hamashtin, if you urinated. Marchin dalar amis and mispalo, you distance yourself away 4 amis and daven. Tanina, we learned that. Kami yorchet in Gemara and Brachas. Kami yachak mehem umenatzaya. How far do you distance yourself from urine and from feces? Is dalar amis. So I understand that. However, elam mispalel marchin dalar amis umashtin. You daven and then you distance yourself 4 amis and urinate. What are you doing? What are you doing? Lamali says, Lamali ihachi. If you're going to say you do that from any place that you daven, right? You have to distance yourself 4 amis. Ihachi kiddush asayna lekuli shvili nardo. You made all the streets of Noy Kaddish because they go ahead and daven all the places over there. Says Gemara Tani Yasher. You go ahead and say delay. In other words, don't say that you daven don't say you daven and you walk 4 amis, but you should wait 4 amis. To wait the distance of 4 amis. In other words, not you daven and you walk 4 amis away and urinate. It makes no sense. It means the following: you daven and you wait the time it takes to urinate, which is 4 amis. Now, bishleim mashtin in other words, and we're saying that on both clauses. On the case of urinating, where you urinate and you wait 4 amis before you daven, and in the case where you daven and you wait 4 amis before you urinate. Bishlema says mashtin yisher, where you urinated, you should wait 4 amis in order to daven. Kedei hilach dalad amis bishum nitzaitis. Because after you finish urinating, the droplets come out. So wait the time it takes to go ahead to walk 4 amis to ensure the finishing of your urination. Elam ispalel, if you're davening, yishe kedei hilach dalad amis lamali. Why are you waiting when you daven? The time waits to 4 amis to finish davening. Says Ravashi, shekol dalad amis tefilasa yisadur b'fiv. When a person's davening, the time it takes to a 4 amis, he's still muttering his voice, and his lips are still what? Uttering. So I think the halacha is, when you walk back the 3 steps by Shmona Esrei, you're supposed to wait the Daled Amis. That's the reason. That Yisha, you wait the Daled Amis before you go back. Okay, good to vach. I think we're going to try for tomorrow morning again. I'll let you know, okay? We're going to try for tomorrow morning again. That seems to work out well for others. We'll see. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Good night.
Good to vach. Thanks for joining, Aryeh.